very much. The White House says President Trump has taken bold action in his first 100 days in office, and he's keeping his promises to the American people. It's a safe bet that most of the Democrats totally disagree with that assessment. Congresswoman Debbie Wasserman Schultz of Florida is joining us, the former chair of the Democratic National Committee. Congresswoman, thanks for joining us.
Thanks. Good to be with you, Wolf.
Let me read to you the tweet that he just posted, the President of the United States, just a few moments ago. Quote, mainstream, in parentheses, fake media, refuses to state our long list of achievements, including 28 legislative signings, strong borders, and great optimism. All right, let me get your reaction.
Well, I mean, really, all the objective analysis that has been done on this president's first 100 days has clearly pointed to a big fat F being stamped on his report card. He has the lowest approval rating of any modern times president in the first 100 days. He has really not signed any major legislation into law. He's been handed major defeats, like the fact that there is an overwhelming majority of Americans that do not want the Affordable Care Act repealed, and they were not able to pass their, storied and often promised repeal and replace plan, particularly because it would have yanked health insurance coverage away from 24 million people. And there are plenty of Republicans in Congress that are hearing from their constituents that they want to make sure that that doesn't happen. So
you got to give him credit, Congresswoman. He did get. We just heard from one of his supporters, David Urban, say his biggest getting Neil Gorsuch on the U.S. Supreme Court, a man of only 48 or 49 years old. He's going to be there for maybe 40 years. That's going to have an enormous impact on judicial decisions in the decades to come.
Well, aside from the fact that that Supreme Court nomination was stolen by Republicans because they refused to even talk to President Obama's Supreme Court nominee for over a year, it shouldn't even have been Donald Trump's appointee, but it wasn't Donald Trump that got him confirmed. The United States Senate confirmed him, and the only way they were able to do that was by changing the rules that were in place for the majority of the United States history. So this could hardly be deemed an accomplishment when they really had to engage in wholly unethical conduct to get their Supreme Court nominee confirmed, and they confirmed somebody who is going to be historically extreme.
What is your feeling about his national security policies? Because a lot of the analysts have suggested he's moving towards a rather traditional conservative approach. What are your thoughts as far as his handling of North Korea, Syria, Russia, China, other critically important issues?
Well, I just returned from a congressional delegation trip focused on our military strategy. I'm the ranking member of the Military Construction VA Appropriations Subcommittee, and I will tell you that certainly our military, particularly over in Korea and Japan, are focused on being ready to fight tonight. What I'm concerned about, though, is that this administration is really unnecessarily ratcheting up and turning up the heat and making the situation more grave than I think it needs to be. While I certainly believe that we need that North Korea understands that their becoming a fully capable nuclear state is absolutely unacceptable, it is dangerous to, and having just been in that region, there is a hair-trigger atmosphere there. And the rhetoric that President Trump and Secretary Tillerson and his administration is engaged in is, as we can see with the provocative actions of Kim Jong-un recently, is not helpful in trying to make sure that we can use a more diplomatic approach to keeping him in check.
We're showing our viewers, Congressman, live pictures of thousands of protesters. They are marching here in Washington, protesting the president's first 100 days, but specifically on climate-related issues. You see all these people demonstrating. There's obviously a lot of anger out there, and I'm sure you share their feelings. But give me your thoughts on the effectiveness of these protests.
Well, I mean, this is at least the third major protest, major march on Washington and around the country since President Trump took office in 100 days ago. You had the Women's March that was millions of people around the country, the March for Science, which was literally tens of thousands, and now the March to combat climate change, which is also going to result in being at least hundreds of thousands of people around the country, probably more than that. And it shows you that we have a mobilized and organized effort to push back and fight President Trump's really hardline extremist agenda. He has tried to take away health care from millions of people. He wants to roll back protections for our environment that are going to do grave harm for generations to come. You have millions of women who are fighting him on his plans to take health care away from us, to roll back protections for our equitable treatment, and they're not going to stand for it. And I think that's been actually the best news story of the first 100 days. How many people are organized against President Trump's irrational and extreme agenda?
Congresswoman Debbie Wasserman Schultz of Florida, thanks for joining us.